Hey, it's Braden, and I'm with Logan, and this is absolutely gobsmacked. How you doing today, Logan?
Doing all right, doing all right. I feel like I got slapped in
Nice.
the face for sure, for sure. Starting the
By
day
who?
off right. Who else? No kidding. Uh,
Yeah, this is our podcast. Just decided to start one. Got some things to talk about, some opinions to share. But really, the reason why I kind of wanted to start the podcast just to have something to do. You know, maybe we'll get enough listeners where um, I can send my kids to college. No, I don't have kids. I can,
yeah.
have something to do, something that I enjoy, and we'll see where it goes from there. What about you?
Yeah. Putting my kids through college too. Oh, kidding. No. Uh. Yeah. Something to do. Something to talk about. We've talked about doing a podcast for a while.
hmm
Um. We both have jobs where, well, we have the same job, but uh, thanks by the way. But anyways.
Do we really?
Oh, what? I'm kidding. Um, no, but we both have, jobs where, it could get mind numbing sometimes. And so having like a podcast really low in the background just to, drown out the in between time, is
Right.
helpful sometimes, when the day is real slow. Um, so, I mean, just, I wasn't really big into podcasts until here lately, actually. And yeah, so just decided to hop on and
Yeah, and I mean, I've listened to podcasts, for a while now. I think a lot of people do nowadays. It's kind of been the thing, especially with quarantine. You got YouTube, and then you got listening to music, and then podcasts. People like to hear what other people have to say, and sometimes you learn something new. It can be very relaxing. For example, I'll listen to podcasts while I'm washing the dishes. Makes it kind of go by a little quicker, or maybe while I'm out on a walk or a jog. I'll put in my earphones and either I'll listen to music or I'll listen to a new episode of one of my favorite podcasts. Yeah, I mean, I'd like to see how this goes, and hopefully we get people that will actually are interested and will listen, and kind of just give some feedback. We're asking everyone to go easy on us. If you want, you can skip this whole part. um,
That's
just
definitely the best way to start a podcast. Go easy on us, be nice, be
yeah,
tender.
yeah, be tender. And we'll do our thing and we'll get better at it that way. More people will be willing to listen, hopefully. With that being said, I guess we'll just hop right into it. Basically what the podcast is going to be about, so that we're basically going to just kind of talk about things. That's kind of what podcasts do. But more specifically, it was my idea kind of just to change it up, and basically the title absolutely gobsmacked. I mean, when you hear the word gobsmacked, you think of something pretty crazy, amazing, whatever you want to interpret it. But really, it's a podcast where we talk about things that have happened, in history, whether it's recent or a while ago, that you may not usually hear about on your typical history podcast or your typical true crime podcast. It's something that's a little unique, hopefully, where we talk about different things that have happened, and I'm sure these things have been talked about, but we'll put our own little spin on it. And so today, we're going to talk about a very specific, we want to call it a myth, a rumor, um, about the Wizard of Oz. And so I kind of will be taking over that, and Logan's going to chime in um, whenever he wants to. And then next week or the next podcast episode, Logan will talk about whatever he researched, and then I'll kind of chime in with my little quips and whatnot. A lot of people have seen The Wizard of Oz. Have you seen The Wizard of Oz, Logan?
Yeah, back when I was a kid, yeah. Well, I
Yeah,
mean, still kid, but yeah.
it's actually been a while. But I know from what I do know about The Wizard of Oz, it was fairly popular when it came out. Definitely.
Yeah,
I mean
yeah, say
that
that.
whole scene where she comes out of her after the tornado, she comes out of her little shed or house or whatever, and all of a sudden it goes from black and white to just color. This
Kind of
pretty
big deal. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a big deal at the time. But there has been a lot of crazy stories, true and untrue, that have come out throughout the years about on set, The Wizard of Oz, different things that have happened to Judy Garland, and more specifically, some Munchkin rumors.
Ooh.
Um, when I was younger, that's what I would call people that were a little shorter. I don't want to offend anyone, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's what I would call them because I had seen Wizard of Oz, and that's what they were called. Were Munchkins, so that's what I would call them. And I remember I saw one at a Hobby Lobby one time as a little, like, 4 or 5 year old, and I go, "Look, Mom, there's a Munchkin over there working here," and she goes, "Don't say that. Don't say that. That's offensive." And I'm like, "What? Then why are they called that in the Wizard of Oz? It just doesn't make sense to me."
Yeah, yeah,
But now I know, there's a proper term or word for a lot of different things, and so you got to be careful what you say. But um, have you ever heard of about a Munchkin, committing suicide before, Logan?
Um, if you're referring to in The Wizard of Oz, no, actually. Actually, honestly, I've never seen a headline, Munchkin commits suicide either. So, yeah,
Yeah,
probably
well, I hope not.
no, no. Nope. Can't say that I have.
Yeah, I don't know. This rumor, we'll talk about it a little bit. There's a specific scene in The Wizard of Oz,
Mhm.
okay, at the very end, where Dorothy and Scarecrow and the Tin Man, the Tin Woodsman, they head down to the road, the yellow brick road towards Emerald City. Apparently, according to, and I get this information from a couple different articles, but this one in particular is from Snopes, which is a very popular myth busting or fact checking website where you can kind of look up myths and legends and see if they're true. Here at Snopes, they said that with this sequence, and there's a video linked, Dorothy and Scarecrow are trying to pick fruit from the talking apple trees. The trees that, I guess these are the trees that throw apples back at them. Is that how it goes? It's been a while since I've seen the movie. But basically, they discover the Tin Man, and then they have an encounter with the Wicked Witch of the West, who tries to set the Scarecrow on fire. That wouldn't be good, no. Um,
Okay.
and then they head
I
off
forgot.
to Oz in search of the wizard, okay? So here's what someone in particular submitted to Snopes, and I'll read it kind of verbatim here. That way you have an idea of their experience. This person says, "I just recently was crashing in at my best friend's house, and we decided to watch The Wizard of Oz. Now, rumor has it that a small munchkin can be spotted in the background. And when I saw this, I began to flip out. I started running around my best friend's house, and I hit the wall, okay? I then got the courage to watch the movie again. I am so positive that I saw a munchkin in the background who committed suicide because he was in love." What?
What? Where did I don't
I mean, love makes you do some crazy things, then. So, I mean, I can see where they're coming from. I just need a little bit more info here. Um,
well, real quick.
Go ahead.
So he was at his friend's house. Is he like how old is this kid? Cuz I mean,
Okay, I don't have the specifics. I don't
oh,
have
okay,
his
okay, okay,
ID or
okay,
anything.
okay.
It's just someone that submitted their experience to Snopes, I guess, or maybe this is kind of where a rumor came from. I can't confirm that or not, but anyways, it continues that my mom, his or her, I'm not sure if it's a guy or a girl actually, and I watched a documentary of the behind the scenes of The Wizard of Oz. We saw the footage closely, and they even showed us before shots of the person. My mom told me to watch the movie closely and look in the woods and the trees for a person wearing black, moving around strangely when Dorothy the Scarecrow and the Tin Man were walking down the yellow brick road. Which I did, and I saw clearly a person hanging. So, not necessarily the best grammar or English, but that's their experience.
Okay.
Okay. Now, before we go into whether it's true or not, I would like to speculate on why a munchkin would commit suicide. Okay. Now, as I mentioned, the Snopes article does link a video on YouTube of the scene. um,
Okay.
and so I watched it. I don't know if you watched it or not. And it definitely looks like something. Okay, something in the background. It's not very clear. I mean, it's 1939,
Mhm.
so you're
Before
not gonna
HD.
see. Yeah, it's not high definition. But if it was a munchkin, I would say it's not hanging from a rope. It's more of like a curtain or a sheet, something a little thicker. That it looks like if that was a munchkin hanging. And so, a munchkin in love. I'm curious what you think that means. Why you would commit suicide? Okay. What are your what's your hypothesis on this,
Well, that
Professor Logan?
Professor, that's Professor Mr. Professor Dr. Patrick to you. No, no. I find that odd that he even, or well, he or she or whoever this was, um, even came up with the idea that it was because of love. That was, I mean, it's been a long time since I've seen The Wizard of Oz, but I don't remember there being a love story with a Munchkin involved. Um, I But knowing that teenagers are usually fueled with hormones and thinking of the opposite sex, maybe that's what they were thinking. Maybe they're like, "Wouldn't that be so romantic?" or something like that. I don't know. That's just, if I saw something in, a movie like this, a happy movie, and saw something as terrible as that, I would have been like instantly been like, okay, well, maybe he was hung for, like, being a munchkin? Like like, you know what I mean? Like Wild Wild West, you know what I mean? Like
Ah, yes, back in 1939, the Wild Wild West. They should have
Exactly.
called it the Wild Wild Wizard of Oz.
Dude,
So
don't get
your theory
anybody.
is some savage decided to burn them or burn. Did I say burn? Hang the Munchkin
Burn first.
because of the color of his skin.
No. Well, now there's gonna be a movie written.
Yes, we should write a movie that would starring The Rock as the Munchkin. That would be amazing.
Well, then who's gonna be everybody else? He's
You know
kinda
what?
tall, you
You
know?
know how Eddie Murphy had those movies where he played different characters, like the Nutty Professor, or Coming to America, where he played dual roles? We can have The Rock play everyone. It would be a box office smash. It would be awesome. And,
Oh,
and, and you only need to worry about one actor. You know what I mean? You don't have to worry about different personalities or clashing on set. Like if we
oh.
had Vin Diesel and The Rock, that could be cause some problems. But with just The Rock playing everyone, that would be a fantastic movie. In fact, I would say that The Rock is in love with Dorothy, or the actress that plays Dorothy, Judy Garland. The Rock playing the Munchkin, and Judy Garland, and that's my idea for the script. And she rejects him because of the color of his skin, and
Okay.
because he says he's a Munchkin, but obviously he's not because he's The Rock. And so he decides to hang himself because we have to base it on a true story. And life can be stranger than fiction. So it may not make sense if it was not a true story, but if this myth is true, then I think that story would fly. I think people would come to watch it, and um, you'd have the half the Rock fan base and the other half the Wizard of Oz um, fan base, and they definitely enjoy that movie. No, but so there is this article. I found something else, and this is on a website called Little White Lies. It's an article on this myth, and basically to kind of complicate things for you, Logan.
Okay.
When The Wizard of Oz was re-released in 1989 for the 50th anniversary, the footage that you see and the video, by the way, that Snopes has is from, I believe it was a 1981 VHS edition. I could be wrong on that, but something like that. And in the re-release, it cleans up the footage. Apparently, the explanation is, and I'll kind of myth bust here, according to Snopes and this article, is that it is not a munchkin hanging from a tree. So I don't know, does that fully shoot down our Rock, Dwayne Johnson movie
I don't know. I
idea?
think
I don't.
I think there's, I could put something in the works for that. I think that's still a possibility.
Okay, okay, well. You talk to your agent, I'll talk to mine. We'll see what we
Okay.
can do.
Okay.
So apparently it's actually a bird. Um,
Wow.
yeah. So there's different animals on this set, kind of add realism to the forest. And one of them was a bird. I can't get the specific type of bird. It says it's a larger bird. It could have been an emu, but more probably a crane, according to Snopes. So apparently, this crane was casting a shadow. Okay, and people really delved into this footage, and but they cleaned it up for the 50th anniversary re-release of The Wizard of Oz, which is interesting. Interesting, right? I mean, did they clean it up because maybe they're trying to hide something? You know, MGM, the studio that originally released Wizard of Oz. You think they're trying to hide something, or you think there was a Munchkin that committed suicide, but they didn't want to get that out to the press? I mean, what do you think?
Well, I mean, this was back during, Wizard of Oz was,
1939 was when it was released. So
yeah, I
I'm
mean,
guessing it was filmed in 38. I'd have to. I didn't do research on that.
well,
I should.
and so that was like in the middle of the Great Depression, right? And so like people needed kind of a pick me up, um, but there wasn't so many like Easter eggs weren't as popular back then, and neither was fan service. Not much of fan, there wasn't very many fans of Wizard of Oz before it existed, obviously, but um, I don't see them like trying to make something and then backtracking on it. Especially if there's like a backstory or something. Uh, and maybe there was somebody who was pulling a prank. What it could be, actually, now that I think about it a little bit, um, it might have been somebody pulling a prank on set just to like horse around with his friends, or fellow producers or fellow um, cameramen or whatever, and they might have just put something up there, and they said so it was confirmed bird though, right?
So pretty much, it was confirmed.
Okay.
It was pretty much proven false. I mean, it was a little far fetched to begin with.
Yeah,
By the
yeah.
way, what I didn't mention this. What really proved, basically confirmed it to be false, was not that the bird suggestion. Not only that, but the fact that these specific scenes were filmed before any of the Munchkin scenes were filmed. So the Munchkins would not have been on set at all at this time.
Oh, okay.
So that kind of squashes any idea of Munchkins even playing a joke or anything like that. But it's interesting that one of the producers of the movie, Mervyn LeRoy, he mentioned that the Munchkins got drunk, smashed every night, according quoting him, and the police had to scoop them up in butterfly nets. Another rumor that I don't know if it's been confirmed or not, but the actress who played Dorothy, Judy Garland, there's a memoir about her that was recently released that claims that she was actually groped by the Munchkins a time or two.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
yeah. So, and I mean, she passed away quite a while ago. So it was from somebody else that knew her. I believe it was her third husband, Sidney Luft, that claimed that. Don't quote me on that. Um,
Okay.
and don't report me either. But yeah.
Oh, yeah. I'm reporting you to the online police,
Okay.
our
And then
personal FBI agents.
the makeup artist Jack Don, he mentioned that there was a German little person, who Munchkin, who got drunk, fell into the toilet, and had to be rescued.
Oof.
Okay. Well, so are those rumors true about the Munchkins being crazy and having to be, chased around and like stray dogs and whatnot? Well, Jerry Marin, who was the last surviving actor to play Munchkin, he passed away in May of 2018. It's actually the last surviving, I believe, individual that was involved with the film at all. He mentions that the bad behavior, the rumors about their bad behavior, has been exaggerated a little bit. So, first of all, you have to think about this. At this time, the Munchkins, I shouldn't, I shouldn't call them that. These little people, it was the first time they were very excited. So it was the first time meeting others like them. You know,
Ah,
um,
mhm.
so they were very excited. Um, he also mentioned that his father worked in a hotel and earned $5 a week, whereas the Munchkins got paid $50 a week for being in the film, which was, I mean, they're not becoming millionaires, but it was a decent amount back then. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
For
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, probably the equivalent of getting paid like $120. Well, maybe not as much as that, but a lot.
It's a
$50
decent amount, right? Yeah.
is a lot. Yeah.
So apparently, a few of them went out to get drinks, but nothing crazy. I mean, they had fun and they hung out with each other, but they didn't nothing too rowdy. Okay, that's according to the actual people involved, the actual little people that played the Munchkins that were involved. That's according to them. So I mean, I don't know. What do you think? Your
Um.
honest opinion.
Why did they need so many? Is my
Because
question.
have you seen them? What do you mean that they need so many? It's
Uh,
Munchkin Land. It's a land full of Munchkins,
we'll
and she
get
happened to land there. This movie's based on a book, so I mean, it's not like they came up with it just to make the
true,
movie.
true, true.
So,
Well, I'm thinking of like modern technology and modern. I'm sure they didn't have, they had a big budget for a film, but
yeah, they
I,
couldn't just duplicate one Munchkin and make a bunch of
yeah,
CGI Munchkins.
yeah,
Um,
and I was even thinking like, get 15 of them and have them dress up and take multiple shots and like put them over each other. But that's kind of advanced for back then too. Yeah, I guess you're right. To get a whole bunch of people in one shot, it would have to be, but yeah, I don't know. It just that's
Speaking of which, this
crazy.
Jerry Marin, sorry to cut you off,
Yeah,
but
you go,
I'm
go,
tired
go.
of hearing from you. This Jerry Marin, the Munchkin, the last one, the last surviving, the
Uh-huh.
last one standing. He's actually in a significant role compared to the other Munchkins. There was these, I don't know if you remember, but when Dorothy's kind of getting greeted by the Munchkins, and there's these two or three little Munchkins with lollipops, and they're like, "We welcome you to the Lollipop Guild, the Lollipop Guild," and they do like a little song and dance, and they have like lollipops in their hands. He was one of those Munchkins that were in the part of the Lollipop Guild. So I thought that was interesting because you can actually see him in the movie where there was quite a few Munchkins. So there's that. I do believe it's a myth. It's not true.
Uh-huh.
Um, people try to start stories like this all the time where you know what I mean, where it's
Yeah.
kind of far fetched. People like a good story, right? They like drama. That's kind of how it works these days, and I think more so now than ever before. So that's my take. Obviously, it's not true. Um, but I'd like to go through 5 true events or stories that did happen on set of The Wizard of Oz, and I want you to tell me what you think, okay?
Okay.
All right, so the Cowardly Lion,
Hmm.
played by Burt Lahr, he wore one costume primarily through filming, and this costume was constructed from actual lion hair. So nowadays
Wow.
they can do synthetic fur and make it look real, right? But back then, I
Didn't
guess
really
they,
have that. Yeah.
yeah, that's crazy.
That's
But
crazy.
apparently the actor Burt Lahr, I mean, real lion fur, that's got to be really hot. I mean, you can only imagine.
Yeah.
So he was filming under intensely hot Technicolor lights. And this, by the way, I want to cite my source. This is from the Vanity Fair website. Um, but apparently, actors, even those that didn't have as much on,
Mhm.
were fainting and being carried off the set because of these hot lights that they had at the time. Um, and that he, sweated through his costume each day, and they had to put an industrial drying bin each night. They had to put the costume in an industrial drying bin every night just because of the sweat.
Dang. I can imagine the smell because like that's from an animal, right? And so I mean, obviously that won't happen today because of PETA and because of concerns of wildlife. We want to maintain that, um, but back then they weren't. They were a lot more liberal with those kind of things. But yeah, just I can imagine the smell even just because of him sweating inside it, and then the smell of the animal on the outside. That would have been that would have been rank by day 2. Jeez.
Yeah, no, I can only imagine because I mean, it reminds me of a little bit of when I was in the fire academy a few years ago. We had our cargo pants and we had our dry fit shirt, but
Mhm.
then we had to put all our gear on, our actual suit and the mask and the everything on when we do physical training or when we do actual live fire drills, things like that. Um, and after even just a couple of hours, but especially after a day, man, you take it off and the cargo pants, it looked like I had gone swimming. That's how much sweat was in there. Oh man. And think about this, 10, 15 guys in one room taking that stuff off and all soaked. You think a locker room is bad? Smells bad? Oh man. I mean, I
Oh,
have never been that soaked in my life. It's crazy. So I can only imagine the smell.
yeah.
Um, and I mean, they just dried the costume. Did they even wash it? It
Oh,
doesn't mention
man.
that here.
Well, like, what do you wash lion fur with, without destroying it? Like, oh, man, because that would have been expensive on top of that because especially with what was going on with, in Europe, it would have been difficult to get, stuff transferred over from, Africa. Nowadays, there's a lot more, direct to Africa and in and out of Africa shipping, but, yeah, just I can only imagine the headache of getting that kinda stuff out. Um, as well as, yeah, like, cleaning it. I don't even I don't even know. That
Don't even ask, man. Okay, so there's that.
Yep.
Side note, that costume sold at an auction in 2014. Guess how much?
Um, I know Wizard of Oz fans, like, they're really into their collectibles.
Yeah. And
Um,
this stuff is I mean, the older it is, usually the more expensive it is depending on, what shape it's in.
yep, yep. Yeah, and if
So
it
take
if
a
it was in
guess.
if it was in, like, pretty pristine shape, I was gonna say at first 50,000, but that actually seems a little low for some because I've heard of, like, some of the original, like, Godzilla, um, I guess costumes because there was a person inside it for the early ones.
Right, right, the
W
older ones.
Yeah, they would go for, like, hundreds of thousands of dollars. Um, so I guess I'll put a nice round number to it, like $400,000.
It sold at an auction 2014 for $3 million.
Oh my gosh, man.
Yep.
Oh, dude,
So
3 million? I could, like I wouldn't have to work another day in my life if I had $3 million. I
yeah,
just buy,
they're
like,
gonna
a
buy
little
that sweaty lion fur. If I can
probably
get
s
$3 million for sweaty lion fur, man, well, I won't say what I'll do because lions are fabulous creatures, and I would not. They're
I mean,
great.
you do have a
Lions are
cat,
fabulous.
right?
Yeah. Well,
I'm kidding.
now we're talking.
Right. Uh,
All right, so this story I think you might find interesting. So, the actor that played the Tin Man in the movie was not the original actor that was hired to play him. So, the original actor, Buddy Ebsen, who became known later on for his own stuff, and I believe I don't know if he was already well known at this time or not, but one night during the rehearsal, he woke up in bed screaming from violent cramping in his hands, arms, and legs. And he had difficulty breathing, so his wife called an ambulance and rushed him to the hospital. And he was in an oxygen tent for 2 weeks. The reason why is because part of the costume for the Tin Man involved aluminum, pure aluminum, and he had ingested it into his lungs.
oh.
So it was an allergic reaction. And so, guess what the studio did?
Well,
Based after hearing about this.
yeah, yeah. Just based off of it was the Great Depression, they couldn't spend a lot of money, and also a lot of that stuff was run by gangsters who didn't really care. I bet they just like told them, "Well, bummer," and hired somebody else.
Yep. No, actually, first they did tell him basically bummer. They told him to get the HE double hockey sticks back to work. They
Oof.
were upset that he had a reaction to it. when the studio was told that he couldn't return immediately, they just replaced him, right? As you mentioned, with actor Jack Haley, who ended up being the Tin Man. And they did change the aluminum makeup a bit, but Haley still got a serious eye infection from it himself. So there's that. Yeah, that's crazy. We could have had a different Tin Man.
Those things are always interesting to me, just because of that. Like, imagine, like, I don't know, what's a movie that iconic. Okay, yeah. Like, imagine Indiana Jones or Star Wars without like, I was gonna say Han Solo, um, Harrison Ford. I know his name. I couldn't. Man, my brain. Anyways, it's late. No, but Harrison Ford. Like, you can't even imagine those kinds of
Yeah,
movies.
I know.
Like, the
Yeah.
movies he's done without him being in it, it just wouldn't make sense. Um,
I
so
remember a story they had hired another actor for Back to the Future before Michael J. Fox. I believe his name was, and if we do have listeners that are Back to the Future fans, they'll get upset with me. Eric Stoltz, I believe, was the name of the actor. He was the original, and I forget the story, but basically he wasn't cutting it. They didn't feel like he was right for the part, so they ended up casting Michael J. Fox in the main role in Back to the Future, and the rest is history. I
yeah,
mean, it
they
happens, I guess, you know.
good decision there, though. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
so much.
So yeah, there's that story. I got another one. It's number three.
Mhm.
So there's a part in and this is before CGI, so they have to do everything kind of. They have to do practical tricks and effects and things like that. Um, there's a scene where they all fall asleep in a poppy field. Okay.
Okay.
I guess the poppies have some. I don't know. They knock them out somehow. I don't remember exactly. But then it starts to snow. Okay. The
Uh-huh.
snow at this time was made of asbestos. Okay.
Ooh.
It was asbestos lace snow, and at that time it was used in holiday decorations for fake snow at the time. Now we know it's dangerous for you and can kill you.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
but at the time that wasn't a known fact, how dangerous asbestos is. So it shows you the sign, the times that
Yeah.
the time period the movie was made. Number four, 4 out of 5. We're almost there.
Mm.
The Wicked Witch of the West caught on fire. I don't know if you remember um, how she'll kind of disappear. Though in the movie, the witch will disappear in a fireball that comes up, and she'll end up disappearing.
Uh-huh.
Well, how it works is, I believe it was like a trap door. That's how she would disappear. So they would come up fire, smoke, and she'd go down a trap door, and she got burned.
Ooh,
She got burned by the fire. The fire got her before she had enough time to exit.
man.
So it scalded her chin, the bridge of her nose, her right cheek, the right side of her forehead. Um, the eyelashes and eyebrows on her eye had completely been burned off, and then her upper lip and eyelid were badly burned. And then the skin on her hand had been burned off. Guess what the studio did? Nothing. A
Yep.
friend had to
Yep.
pick her up from the movie studio. They didn't even give her transportation to get her to a hospital. It took her 6 weeks to recover. Okay.
And did they
The
did
studio
they
had
try to
called
replace her?
they called her the very next day, asking when she'd return. It took her 6 weeks. Even then, the nerves in her hand were still exposed. So she had to wear green gloves instead of the green makeup she has.
Wow.
And believe it or not, this is the fifth story, I guess, according to Vanity Fair. She was the day she returned, or shortly after she returned, they asked her to film another fire scene. And so she was like, "No way, I'm not doing that." So they had to get a stunt double. And guess what? Her stunt double got burned too. So things have
I
changed in the movie
that
industry.
Yeah, yeah. No, and that sounds like a design flaw on the part of an engineer. Oh, jeez. Yeah, we've come a long way for sure. Movies
I
movies
know.
have gotten really easy. The fact that people can still stay at home. I know movies are being made right now where people are still at
Right.
home.
Post
And
production and everything,
mhm.
CGI, you can do it all on your computer now. Well, with CGI, it does make you have to have special skill set now for certain things. things have changed, and there are some things that are more complicated. But at the end of the day, there are more possibilities with technology advancing to do certain things. For example, you asked earlier why there's so many Munchkins in the movie. I remember seeing like a little documentary on documentary. I don't know how it's pronounced on Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, the newer one that was released like what, 15, 16 years ago, 15 years ago. And
Uh-huh.
even at that time, they had one actor play the Oompa Loompas, and they basically CGI'd in the rest of them to look exactly like him.
Wow.
Whereas in the original Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory from the 70s, those were all also little people they hired to play the Oompa Loompas, all different ones. But now they just needed one guy. They just needed one small person.
Yeah. Yeah, no, yeah, that's pretty crazy. Yeah, I mean, well, I remember seeing it, and yeah, I remember them all being looking the same, and I was like, wow, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. They got a whole bunch of, that's pretty good makeup. But no, I mean, hey, but it has been a while since I've seen that movie too. I honestly prefer the original. I know that'll trigger a lot of people, but the OG's
Either way, you're
good.
gonna trigger people.
True, true, true.
I will tell you the newer one is, how do I say this? First of all, I'm a huge Johnny Depp fan, right? He's
Yeah.
my favorite actor. Second of all, I remember when this movie came out, I was so hyped about it because I like the original, but the fact that they were updating it to modern day, and at the time they had released these Wonka bars and I would get them at the gas stations. Um, at the time, the convenience store was called Super America. I was in Minnesota when living in Minnesota when the movie came out, and I mean it was just like, and I would get a Wonka bar every chance that I got. Almost every day, I'd get one, and it was basically just a Crunch bar. But at the time, it didn't make a difference. To me, it was a Wonka bar from the movie, and I was eating something from that movie, and and I was just like, and I just found, was starting to discover who Johnny Depp was and everything, and it was such a big deal to me to see this movie, and I guess I was hyped for the trailer, and we ended up seeing it in IMAX, the movie.
Hmm.
It was my first IMAX movie, huge screen. I remember just the screen would go over and above my head, just gigantic screen, and loved every second of the movie and the chocolate and factory. I wanted to go visit, and I didn't find out till years later that it didn't exist. It was all built on a set.
You mean yesterday? Yeah, no,
No,
yeah.
no, last week. But yeah, I still have a hard time believing that there's got to be a real. I mean, come on, chocolate's real. Why can't the factories be so that cool? It was just such a big part. I guess I have more of an emotional attachment to it,
Yeah.
um,
Well, what
because of the timing and everything.
yeah, and that's what's funny about that is actually, um, when I saw the original one, um, I was that was back when, man, I don't remember when I was how old I was. I had to be, like, no older than 7, maybe 6, um, and I was actually afraid of that movie. I did not like it, the original one. I was like, "This is, like, a terrible movie," like, this guy's trapping all these kids, like, what a terrible movie, and these parents aren't even, disciplining their kids, like, what is going on? I was like, "Man, this is a crazy movie," and the scene where he goes into into the tunnel where it's all weird and stuff, it didn't make sense to me. Like, it was just really confusing. I was like, what is he trying to accomplish with this? That part wasn't even scary to me, which is funny, but in retrospect, but I was like, "Man, this movie is just so confusing," and at the very end, when he went in the rocket ship, um, in the glass elevator and landed and everything, and he got it's supposed to be a happy ending. I don't remember
Hmm.
why, but as a little kid, I was like, "This is a terrible ending." I don't know what I was expecting. I don't know, but it's just I did not like it. But as I got older and I got homeschooled in 10th grade, and my mom, after I got done with school, I was home more often than my little sisters were. And so she was like, "Come watch an old movie with me," and she'd have me do like fold the laundry, and we'd watch like a black and white movie. And so then I got to appreciate film a lot more around that time. So
Yeah, yeah. Speaking of which, I don't want to get too much off topic, but this is technically on topic. I was kind of creeped out by the Wizard of Oz, but it was not nightmare inducing. But you want to know what was nightmare inducing?
hmm.
They actually made like sort of like a sequel to the Wizard of Oz in the '80s called The Land of Oz or something like that.
Oh,
Yeah,
geez.
was it The Return of Oz? The Land of Oz? Oh man, uh, one we got we got to do is we got to one of these days for maybe for the podcast if viewers want we can kind of review the movie, or even we can do like a Patreon where we watch it and do like a live reaction kind of deal.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that would be hilarious because man, that movie I watched it once and never again. Uh, I remember I got it at Blockbuster. Like, oh, it's a Wizard of Oz sequel. I didn't know that they made one. Now I know why I never heard of it. So yeah, but look that up and we want to get those that feedback from everyone listening in, comments and feedback, and we want to hear what you guys have to say. What do you guys think about our topics and what we talk about? Any advice? Any tips? Logan, stop talking about your life experiences. Stuff like that. We're open minded and willing to listen.
No,
We
I'm not.
we
I'm
are for the
kidding.
people.
Yeah.
I think that'll wrap this episode up.
No, that's it. I think we went over everything we wanted to go over, and I guess next time will be my thing. But yeah, let us know what y'all want to hear.
All right. Well, here's my little catchphrase. Okay, and I'm gonna totally rip this off. I
Okay.
am not did not originally create this. It's from my one of my favorite movies, The Truman Show. To quote Jim Carrey himself, "Good morning," and in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.